Okay, so here's the thing. I mentioned about the house, fear, coming here, being traumatized. I didn't know what I was stepping into, the life I was leaving behind. Now, guess what? What I'm about ready to share here with you, for some people it's a big deal, and for other people it's not. I'm healed now, I'm okay. A lot of people would not want me sharing this if it was you that was involved in this situation. So I don't want to tiptoe around it, because then it ends up taking, you know, a couple pages of writings versus just saying a sentence or two. I'd like to keep things on the surface as I go through, because you can see by my notes, if I turn this into an encyclopedia conversation, it's going to be an all-day event. So what I wanted to do is touch base on some of the surfaces of the things that I've been through. Starting off, when I got there into the house, I was invited to go downstairs. Into the basement, there is a beautiful bathroom. The temperature of the lights were lit, so the heat was just perfect inside the restroom. It was a little chilly in the basement. I had my belongings so I could get a shower, get cleaned up, because it was a long drive over, and get ready for bed. I was also tired from the drive on the way over. Now, I understand that I'm a very attractive person. The person that I came out here to be with, I find them very attractive as well. However, at the time of myself being in need, I am not looking for anything more than a safe place to rest my head. At some point, within a brief time of me first being here in Ohio, my boundaries of intimacy were crossed. I don't know if you ever witnessed that yourself throughout your life. I have on several occasions. During this time, I was really weak, I was really broken down, and advancements was made at me to have sex. I cried and I pleaded, please no. The person proceeded to go further, and in my presence, I started to cry my eyes out. In other words, I was being raped, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was in the middle of nowhere. I already understood police and their thoughts on somebody who's a society kind of outcast, not to mention I was on probation. I had that tragedy that happened, so I'm suffering from that. All the other things that I talked about I'm going through, and now on top of this, I'm in a stranger's house, and I'm asking them, please don't. And they ended up proceeding what you call with rape. This was very disturbing to me, because now who do I turn to? Who do I run to? Do I call the cops? Where am I going to sleep? Am I going to sleep in the car? This is somebody who is ready to kill themselves by jumping off the George Washington Bridge. The last thing I needed was this to come about. I ended up sleeping on the floor in the bedroom, and I was rolled over, facing towards a dresser, which would be away from the foot end of the bed. And in the middle of the night, I woke up and I saw him chanting in tongues that I am not familiar with, in a language I never heard but one time in my life, which was in New Jersey, when that I mentioned in my story that an older gentleman had met with me, took me for a drive in his vehicle, mentioned that I was going to be a pet at someone's feet in their office. Okay, you have to go back a few videos when I'm talking about my time in New Jersey. What I am acknowledging was more of a satanic cult that was targeting me, and I feel very strongly they're still targeting me. Electronic harassment. I'm convinced that I'm learning reasons as to why and how. Now here's the thing, with that being said, I didn't know if this person was a part of a satanic cult. I will tell you this, over the years of our relationship, I plain out seen a man of God that I loved more than probably any other man in my life, or anybody in my life. He was Italian, a soldier, and I always wanted to be with a military person, and I always wanted to be with an Italian. The first girl that I ever dated in my childhood was Italian. She had a lot of Italian blood in her, I should say. So I knew at a very early age, I think Lafayette Street's when it became very dominantly clear, I would love to be with an Italian. Not somebody else's idea of what an Italian is or what commercial industry perceives an Italian. A very romantic, very kind-hearted, godly, and one with a sense of humor that is effectuated with me. Well, that's what it appeared to be through the gentleman. I still, to this day, they might not like it, but I call my daddy. They're going to always be my daddy to me, and I will not shut my mouth with that. And I'll always be his baby girl. But it didn't start off on what I perceive as being the best terms. I was traumatized. I was raped. I woke up to him chanting over top of me, which scared the crap out of me. At some point I was too scared then to sleep in the same room. I was too scared to call the cops. I already knew that living with my family back in Pennsylvania was very unhealthy for me to do. I was constantly, when I would stay with people, I either had to pay a large sum of money to do it, which was ridiculous, to be honest with you, and a ridiculous price, which means I had to keep on working. I couldn't stop, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit. How about now? You see, before I came out here, I would stay at my sister's house. In order to stay at my sister's house, sometimes I would sleep with her and her daughter, and I really like that. Family, being close. Her husband didn't care for me too much and saw me more of a user. Understand, through my times of homelessness or losing my home, I just wanted to be with family. It's in me to have somebody very special and children to love. I'm a traditional kind of like the American culture, the way that we were raised years ago with godly values. The thing is I'm only a transsexual female, but I still have those same godly values, traditional godly values from years ago. With that being said, I wanted to be with family. I wanted somebody special in my life. It's hard enough going through your own identity crisis, let alone a man or somebody else to be proud to be with you, knowing the effect it had on my life, the effect it would have on their life. I was going through my transition, probation, I had lawyer fees, I had, even then at times I think I still had my home to be concerned about. I was lonely. So understand, for me, this is very complicated. What I need is a home in a safe location that I can maintain and then put my life together in a manner that's conducive for my thought process so I can enjoy my life. That's it. And I'm having a really hard time doing this with having to travel on the road, doing the services that I was providing, and I was going through a lot of torturous pain because I wanted compatibility with a partner. I wanted to date a man really bad. I was looking at hopefully someday I would get married. I really wanted a child in my life, to raise. And also I felt like I was being led into rock and roll ministry, which I was thinking worship leader. I wanted to be involved. I knew I loved music, and I wanted to make this right with my life, but I ended up going through years of pain and suffering because I had a lot of figuring things out that I'm looking forward to sharing with you at another time. It was more of an identity crisis in general, not just being a transsexual. not just being a transsexual female and coming out and taking those transitional steps. While I was at that house, I ended up sleeping on the far end of the house where I first showed you where his office was. Behind there was 2 bedrooms. In that bedroom is where I fell asleep, and during the night I had a dream of my dog Riggs Michael, who was a boxer. He had a black mask and he was brindle, so he had brown in him with black tiger stripes on and a little stubby tail. His ears were docked and he was fixed. And this all happened in my relationship. I explained how we became best friends. God used that dog to teach me a lot. It helped to bring out my inner youth, and it condemned me. You know, our relationship, my acknowledging that I was not necessarily the Miss Perfect that I would have liked to be. I had a bad attitude, and a lot of that was contributed into the pain that I had. All the pain I had inside my heart and inside my mind for years. And my dog helped to bring a lot of that out. And I had a lot of regret. I explained that our relationship didn't start off the best. I was abusive towards him because I didn't want him in my life. He ended up being the most spoiled, rotten puppy dog you ever did meet. And his life was extended because a lot of it was because I gave him undivided attention. I gave him exercise, continuously took him places with me and left him run free. I gave him the very best food, the very best health care. He was like my son, okay? When I was losing everything and I couldn't maintain what I had to find him a home. That was really hard. I didn't want him going back to the person that ended up giving him to me in our relationship, because the reason we originally split up, meaning me and this girl, we split up in our relationship was because of the dog. I felt that he was being abused, in a sense. And I talked about that too, so I don't want to keep repeating it. But that's how I got the dog in my life. She knew that I loved him. She wanted me to take care of him. I didn't want to give him back for a lot of reasons that I already explained. So I ended up finding him a home. There was a lady who evidently had acres of land, and she had other dogs. I think some of them were boxers, if not all of them. And she said that he would have a happy home. Now, when I came out here and I was in bed, I had a dream. This was like 6 months later, shortly after I arrived here in Xenia. And in that dream, Riggs came to me, and he was really, really happy. He was running around like a big pond, and he actually talked to me. And he told me he was all right. He's in a much better place now, and he's very happy, and he's totally free. He smiled, and then somebody yelled, "It's time for him to go," and he ran around the circle of the pond, which was similar to that which I used to go into the mountains and would sit with him at. It was similar to land that I used to go and sit and meditate while he ran around. And he took off in the dream, and then I woke up and I had a great sense of peace. I was excited. My dog came, visited me, told me it was all right. I was hurt because this was like 6.5 months later. So, 2008, I guess, is when I found the home. I have pictures at home with the date on it and stuff. But it was the hardest thing, and I have pictures of this with my eyes. I'm crying my eyes out because I didn't want to give up my dog. So for him to come to me in a dream was quite relieving. It was assuring that it's okay, that he understood why. He said to me that he understood why I found him a new home. He forgives me, and he loves me. He's in a much better place now. That meant a lot to me. That was a huge burden off of my brain, because I was uncertain of the treatment he may receive when I gave him to somebody else. I tried to do the best I could in finding him a new home. I wanted to find him the very best. I knew he needed lots of room to run and somebody who would love him and give him the very best. So to know that he most likely, according to the dream, passed away within 6 months, I was confused as to, is God sparing me the pain of actually witnessing that, meaning his passing on, his transitioning, or was it, in a sense, that maybe I made a bad move by giving him to somebody else, and his heart was broken because like I portrayed him. He was excited the day that the lady came. We opened up the car door and he ran and he jumped in, and that kind of hurt me a little bit too, because I knew he wasn't sure exactly that he was never going to come back. I don't know if he thought that day. What do you think? Do you think he was thinking I'm going to jump in the car with him? I really wish I didn't have to go through that. I would have liked to keep him in my life, you know? So I don't know how he was thinking. I don't know if he was thinking, you betrayed me. I don't know if he ever missed me the whole time he was gone, and that's what killed him, transitioned him sooner, however you want to look at it. He was getting older. The pictures showed it. He had a lot of gray in him. So that kind of bugged me. But with him coming to me in a dream, it relieved me. And then I felt like maybe, you know, because in a spiritual sense, I'm thinking to myself that was God letting me know that maybe his transitioning in my life, I couldn't have handled it. I wouldn't have been strong enough to handle it. So that spared me that. As well, it left me know that maybe there is another life where we go and it's eternal, and all your pains are taken away and you're happy. In my dream, he was happy. He was doing what he loved to do. And I forgot to get a battery, so we're going to have to start walking down here to get it. With that being said, in that house is where I had the dream. I posted it online on Facebook. I don't know if it's still there. It was 2010-ish. Or 2009-ish, sometime after February, and most likely before October. Not 100% sure. It was shortly after I moved in there. I mentioned about the deer. I was really excited to see that, and Daddy used to have these binoculars that were available, and you could look out the back window and see down the details of it. And it was really nice because as a child, growing up as a child, I used to love to go deer spotting. It was one of our family things that we did every Friday night, and sometimes if we were lucky, we would do it on a Saturday with my mom and usually her boyfriend. As I got later on in years, that was something that I offered to my friends, my best friends, people I dated. I would take them deer spotting or go parking. I invested a lot of time, quality time in the mountains. And that was one of the things for me, was deer spotting. I used to love that as a child, and I continue to love it. And I'm kind of moving on to other things now, but I still love them. It was funny because I just seen a deer the other day when I was driving down the highway, and you know, I had a lot of encounters with deer as well, unfortunately, with my cars. Check back on some of the blogs and you know what I'm talking about. So, while this is still going on, one thing that I woke up to that I really, really loved was in the kitchen cupboard was Trader Joe's peanut butter. I love peanut butter a lot. And I grew up eating a lot of Jif peanut butter and jelly, Welch's jelly, white bread. Over the years, a lot of it has changed, and a lot of it is from being in that household with the gentleman that I call my daddy. They were very much so into eating healthy and organic food. I remember when I was at home in Cleona, Pennsylvania, one of the things I really wanted to do in my life was become a vegan. I really did want to become a vegan, but I would be okay being a vegetarian with minor exception of occasionally having a little bit of white meat or some kind of meat, for various reasons. Whether it be a little bit of fish or something like that. But I remembered in Cleona, that's what I wanted. I wanted to transition, and I seen myself becoming a vegan sooner or later. And so I was really happy about that when I got into the cupboard. I also tasted the Red Hot Blues chips. There was like a quarter of a bag left. And when he had gone away doing other things that he had errands to do and stuff, I would be found in the cupboard either eating Red Hot Blues, peanut butter out of the jar, Trader Joe's, I loved it. I would put a teaspoon in, and Trader Joe's chocolate syrup on top of it. I would hold it at the kitchen sink, take the teaspoon in the peanut butter jar, and then I would put Trader Joe's chocolate syrup on. Kind of like a Reese's peanut butter cup. That was my favorite snack. And also, that's when I really, even prior to that, white Zinfandel, my absolute favorite wine to drink. Still, I don't drink too much anymore, but that's my go-to wine. It's always been my favorite once I first tasted it, since coming out. So I spend a lot of time sneaking glasses of wine out of the refrigerator. It used to be in one of those boxes. It had a little spout on it. You can push it, put the glass under there and push it, please. And I drank it usually out of kind of like a Scotch glass. And the house, the environment, using the glass, the white Zinfandel, the organic peanut butter, the chocolate was also organic. The Red Hot Blues was organic. The food that he was feeding me was real quality food. I have not had, in all honesty, I have not known what it was like to have quality food. Most of my life I grew up like a lot of us, and I was raised on low-grade, cheap imitation food that is very, very, very unhealthy for us. It helps us to get through, but it also has a lot of consequences when eating it. With that being said, one of the things that he did was made me an early morning breakfast. There was spinach in it, and I forget right now, I'm going to think about it, but he used to call, he would have a whole lot of leftovers, like different leftovers, and he would mix it in with the eggs. And he called it something special, and I'll think about that in a little bit and get back to you with that. But that was my morning breakfast, and I had a picture of that too that I think's on my Flickr account. He shaped it in ketchup, Trader Joe's organic ketchup, in the shape of a heart. Very romantic. We had a picture of the first morning of being together. I was excited to know him. I was upset at what happened, but understand, we became very, very close. So understand this, if you are going through it, or you went through it, or maybe in the future, know that under my circumstances and everything that I have endured and come to as being a godly person, I really found it in the fruits of my spirit to forgive. It was hard, very hard. I was at the mercy of a complete stranger that I was trying to get to know. We had a lot of good times. I learned a lot in being there at the house. My head still was all messed up from all the trauma and things that I endured since coming out, and in life in general, not just coming out, but in life in general. I mentioned about Red Hot Blues, Trader Joe's peanut butter. The house was absolutely gorgeous, and to me, it was the ideal house that I would have loved to live in. It was like an expression of my inner spirit. Had skyline, like windows in the roof, The living room had glass windows the whole way across the wall. In other words, I suffer from a great deal of major depression. And being in a very well-lit house by natural light coming in, and a window view, the gorgeous view of the yard, the quality of the furniture. He had really good taste, or him and his partner had very, very good taste. And it was enjoyable for me to witness and experience that for the first time in my life, because I lived in a lot of lower grade homes, okay? And I don't like to cut them short. They were homes that provided roof over my head, but this was an absolutely gorgeous home on gorgeous property with gorgeous view. And it helped me to really feel like there was an extension of my inner spirit. Because just because a lot of people we see, we as the human race tend to see people in the now, in the circumstances, but we don't really know what's inside here and what the potential really could be for them to fulfill and live out. You know, I've learned over the years, don't judge anybody to the best of our ability in their circumstances, because who knows what's in the coming or where they've been, who they really are, especially in here, you know. And I think in here a lot of times most of us are quite different than maybe others perceive us. With that being said, the house was gorgeous. I felt like I could identify very well with it. It was the kind of home that I would still, to this day, and in the future years to come, I hope I have the opportunity again to actually live in a gorgeous home like that. That would mean a lot to me. I would appreciate that in my life. They were very well connected in the trans community, and they got to invite a lot of trans, and they did, even prior to that, invited a lot of trans people over into the house. At the time, I was not ready for that. I had a lot of overwhelmingness of what it was I was going through. But the good news is, I got to meet a lot of trans women, and some of them I connected with very well. I have pictures also on my Flickr with that. The beginning years of me coming out in 2009. And you can tell if you look closely at those pictures that I'm hurting deeply inside. Really, really bad. May I never, or anybody ever, be in that state of mind. You know, I myself ever again. But it was a wonderful season that I had the opportunity to meet a lot of other people who were also going through their own challenges in life. You know, we got to form like a support group. And that was something that I know in my attitude at the time, I was more focused on myself and my pains of what I was going through. But looking back now, I just want to say I love each and every one of you, especially the ones that became, which I've reached out most recently and we're still in connection, at least in some way. And I hope that we always are, and we grow closer over the years, and we can see and witness each other's lives as they become. I realized that a lot of the girls that would come over were kind of like comedians. In other words, they've learned to adapt because of the conditioned society, and they're coming out. We have learned to have quite the sense of humor. And there was especially someone special that used to come over when I was really, really depressed, feeling suicidal. I used to pass out on the bed drunk from drinking wine. It was for me that I would try to find access to having marijuana, you know, and I was trying to comfort my pain through numbing it, if you will. I didn't want to necessarily be with it. In the natural, I couldn't deal with it, so I would smoke marijuana whenever I could, and I would drink a lot of white Zinfandel. And the friends would come over, the people that we knew, the other girls in the community, and they would usually tell jokes and do everything they could to try to lift my spirits. Oh, we had a lot. I really value those times. Let me see. Okay. So the dominant thing is I was staying focused on, I'll tell you right now, I already explained about my home, my child, my transition meant the world to me. I wanted more than anything to get through this transition as fast as I could. Meaning I was doing hair removal, any surgeries that I wanted done, like I had a track shave done. I did some very minor stuff. I was thinking about breast implants. To be honest with you, can I be honest? I wanted to change a lot about myself because, in my opinion, I was up here a female, but because of this body part that I'm not going to show on camera right now, but it is online if you look, it's really not all that impressive. But the truth of the matter is, because of that body part, I was really, in a worldly sense, in the way of thinking that I have to become very masculine and very manly. And it was completely opposite to up here, which caused a lot of depression and a lot of stress, challenging times. As I was making things right, I really felt like, more so or not, I have to remove all the hair, you know, not this hair, but the body hair. I would have to get SRS, I would have to get breast implants, I'd have to get butt implants, I would have to get my rib removed or something like that. I would have to do all this transitional changes through surgery and things. My hormone levels were very important. They are very important to be consistent where they need to be, and it's a combination of the levels of your estrogen, the levels of your testosterone, and also how do you feel? Really, being realistic, how do you feel? Do you feel like you have mood swings? I had really bad mood swings when I came out here. I was on a cream, estrogen cream. It had really nice effects on my hair. My femininity features were starting to shine through, but my mood swings were absolutely horrific. They were up, they were down. Usually not mad, not aggressive, very depressed, meaning I had the lowest of lows. And then other times I'd be very happy and very vibrant. But one thing I can guarantee you is I loved being Tracilyn. I loved the transitional journey. I didn't like my circumstances, and I didn't want anybody to tell me I had to wait to transition completion. I wanted to transition now. Okay? So the second I knew what was going on, I wanted to transition from the worldly self into who I am, like that. In my opinion, female. I'm learning to talk a little bit different because I'm realizing it's an identity thing. And we adapt a personality, an identity, and a worldly self because of many reasons. And in my situation, as I came to Christ, Jesus Christ, I had my worldly self began to transitionally soften and change. And I started realizing that I became something pretty amazing and beautiful, but I lost a lot of the things in my life that I really loved. I wasn't being honest with myself, and therefore I became somebody I really did not like to look at in the mirror. There were things about me I liked, but overall I was not satisfied. Now I'm extremely satisfied. Can we get this over with at this time at this house? Please help me transition now. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to do whatever it is that I can do. I want to do this now. All my doctors knew it. That number one, it would be what's best for me, and they knew how bad I wanted to transition now. This added to my depression. It added to a lot of my focus being taken off with the new friends that Daddy was trying to help me make. Daddy was trying to help me form a new life out here in Ohio instantly. The thing is I couldn't get the trauma out of my mind, including when we first met. You know, I was dealing with a lot of stuff, and I'm thankful that I'm healing, and I'm going to explain to you why I hurt in a little bit, because this same person, the action is forgiven, and there's nobody else I would have rather went through that night with. And I really love them a lot. And I wish we could still be in each other's life and be really good friends at least. I'm always going to be their baby girl, and they're always going to be my daddy. Forever. Okay, so we're talking about knowing that I had needs. I had a lot of financial needs. I was taking care of a child and stuff like that. Well, this person was willing to help me in all the areas that I needed it. All I had to do is let them know what my needs were. The problem is I didn't know exactly what to do, and I was traumatized. Now, when I got out here, I ended up talking to a detective from Wethersfield, Connecticut, that was on my case, that I met the day that my room was ransacked. And from what I understood at that time in that conversation, I don't want to say for 100% sure, they had some leads, but nothing was an absolute definite. And I remember I was really hurt over that. Because I wanted closure. The thing that I didn't mention to you, that I may have mentioned in another video when I was talking about the bridge, was the fact that, ironically, as soon as I got off the bridge and started heading to Ohio, within 45 minutes, I got a call from Wethersfield Police Department. And it was almost like they could see or hear the details of where I was and that I was leaving Connecticut, or I had already left. Meaning I'm on the other side of the bridge. They finally call me from the police station, and they tell me that they have my computer and some possessions in their custody, that if I want to, I could come and pick them up. Well, the thing is I was traumatized. I gotta be honest, because of the first police situation that happened in York, Pennsylvania, and I knew I was innocent, but I had to go through what I went through, and I explained that, meaning I had false prostitution charges pressed against me. I honestly believed that after my prayer out loud that I was being monitored somehow. I don't know if there was a microphone in my room or microphone in my possessions. I felt like I was being monitored. And here's the thing, when I threw that Bible down and they came in, it was very convincing to me that they really were undercover police, or pretending to be undercover police is what they said, but it felt like they were really undercover police, pretending to be undercover police, it was like they were undercover police pretending to be people who were pretending to be undercover police. Do you get what I'm talking about? In other words, I believe that they were police, but they were impersonating people who were impersonating police. I don't know if this is true or not true to this day, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, in a few days, but the truth of the matter is, that's what I was thinking in my head. And when I left there and I started heading to Ohio and I got that call, I was like, it was almost like they knew by cameras on the interstate, or they were somehow monitoring me, my car, but they knew that I was on the other side of the bridge. The odds of me turning around after 45 minutes of passing there, which would have mean about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half away, the odds of me turning around and going back to get my stuff is most likely not going to be. And it was kind of like they were rubbing it in my face. I'm not saying they were, that's how it felt to me, which hurt even more. I said, I'm done, I'm going to Ohio. And I come out here and the things happen that happened in the beginning. Will I ever heal? Will I ever be able to transition fully? Did God really call me into a rock and roll ministry? Or is this something that I'm just making up in my head? Will I ever experience true love? Will I get married? Will I ever have the chance to raise a child? Or have a child in my life? Will I ever get to witness living in a beautiful house that I'm responsible for, and I can be responsible for because I have the means? Will I be married to an Italian man? All this to be learned in the years to come. This person, and I'm going to keep saying that, this person, my daddy, when I came out here, offered me clothing, as they did to a lot of the people in the community. It was open to anybody that came in there. Beautiful clothing, too. Not all of it was things I wanted to wear, but I gotta admit, my favorite jacket came out of there, one of my favorite, or a couple of my favorite dresses came out of there, heels came out of there, that I used for years. A lot of different articles of clothing came because of his generosity, okay? My financial needs were definitely taken care of, and I was still continuing to get electrolysis. Still getting laser, and I started to see a lady that was providing therapy that I went to speak to in 2009. Also started getting involved in an LGBT-friendly church that I'm going to be looking to share with you, and I'm excited to share with you. I had a lot of problems at first mentally in attending that church for a lot of reasons that I'm looking to get out, and I feel sorry that it was that way. I'm okay with it now because I understand the details as to why. I had a really bad attitude when I came out here, and it was just simply because I was in a great deal of pain. I was already adjusted to what I was adjusted to in my life. This new readjusting to a new way of life. If you keep looking back, you're never going to get to witness what's going on right here. So, if I could have got my head out of the dirt and I would have known what to do about my circumstances that I could do, I would have applied it. And I'm not saying it would have went any easier because I was already traumatized. I would say I was suffering legitimately from PTSD. Okay? Now, obviously major depression, severe depression, which is what I have been diagnosed with. Now here's the thing, many times. Now, here's the thing, check this out. I had mentioned about the detective. He called me, I was not happy with that. Got clothing. Everybody was very, very nice to me. I spoke with a girl from Columbus, Ohio, on the phone in the kitchen where I told you I was sitting at the table, and I told you to remember at that window. That's where I was sitting at the time when I spoke to a girl in the trans community. She was a transsexual female, and I always had a great deal of respect for ones that, I guess you could say, transitioned before me or were going through the transitional, because of we have a lot of things in common. And they usually have really nice advice to offer. And one of the things that she had mentioned is that I will have to relearn things that I once knew. And a lot of things that I've learned, I will have to forget and relearn basically a new way of life. Someday I'll write down the actual way that she said it. I may even have it written down in an email. We spoke a few times. In all honesty, she warned me to be careful about the person that I was with. Okay? At this time, I don't want to go too much into the details of that, but she warned me. In other words, the sooner that I could become independent, away from being in the custody of somebody else taking care of me, the better off that I would be. Imagine me talking to her, and when I said to her, I understand, I know, after what I just shared with you, imagine that. how I was thinking. I'm speaking to somebody who's kind of warning me about the circumstances specifically that I'm in. I don't know what to do. I'm dealing with everything else that I'm dealing with. I didn't know that I could do what I'm going to share with you in the years to come, meaning in the video series I'm doing of the years to come. Somebody within the community had brought a keyboard over to me, and they said that my daddy mentioned that I was being led into a rock and roll ministry, that I wanted to be, that I was a songwriter. They brought the keyboard over for me to fiddle around with in hopes that I would give therapy to myself by playing the piano and writing some songs or learning songs to play, maybe for a church. The thing is I'm not much of a piano player at all. I know some basic chords, chops, that's it. And maybe some melodies if I keep practicing, but piano was not my thing. However, my grandmother, my mother's mother, was fantastic at the piano and the keyboard, the accordion, and so was my mother, very much so. They were worship leaders. There was a lot of worship leaders in my family. My grandmother, my mother, my mother's brother was a bass singer in a quartet. I was raised around gospel music. I love gospel music, even to this day. I have ideas for gospel music that I would really love to put together my own album someday of Christian music, but I would like to also do, mix it with some contemporary gospel music from what I grew up with years ago, and maybe even do a couple of those songs. It's a lot. It's overwhelming at times because it takes time to record the details of a song to perfection for me, what I consider perfection. So understand, with all the things I was going through, even now I got to learn how to play piano because that's what I had. I was really an acoustic guitar player and I just strum. I used to want to be a lead guitar player, talked about the musical background. And one of the things is I've learned, because I was I actually did a lot of shows live, solo acoustic, and I learned that I just loved to strum the guitar. I loved the entertainment part, or so I did. And I just loved to beat my acoustic guitar and sing the songs from my heart and have a good time. And so learning the piano and having to go through with the possibilities of all the other stuff that was on my mind, maybe it would have been a great idea, and if I could get a hold of that piano, maybe I would hold on to it, and at some point in my life I would sit down and discipline myself to transpose and learn how to play the piano. Or maybe I'll meet somebody sweet someday that will show me some things that can give the illusion that I've learned how to play piano. That would be nice. If I could just play one song on the piano, that would be pretty neat. So check this out. I could do it. You could do it too, if we put our minds to it and put the time into it. But I got to be honest with my passion and the way that I feel like in a time crunch of things taking as long as they did, I really do love playing acoustic guitar the way that I play it, which is, a lot of people would say, is abusive, aggressive, if you will, on my guitars. So, brought me over a keyboard. He was very, very friendly. He worked on cars. He helped Daddy a lot with working on houses. He was a very good person to be in my life. I recently started talking to him. Just talked to him yesterday on the phone, and I love him. If you see this video, know that I love you. Your name's David. You touched my life a lot. One thing I can say is the people that Daddy was introducing me to have been very, very kind. During this time, not anymore, Okay, I suffer in my depressive state. I don't like being too big-headed. But during this time, I was extremely suicidal. Highly suicidal. That's all I meditated on. What would be the best way to kill myself? That's when, also during that time, when I was an escort, and then over here in Xenia, I was seeking out ways to go to another country so that I could get the means to be able to put myself to sleep. And can I tell you, if you're dealing with this out there, please don't do it. And know that in time, if you listen to my story, you'll find out that there is hope and there is reason to continue on. And the suicidal part, the depression may be there because you recognize circumstance details. But the suicide, the thoughts, you don't have to bury them anymore. They start to dissolve once you start making things more right in your life. And you channel that same energy that I was using to seek out ways to kill myself. I started channeling into my music and doing videos. So writing songs over the years, recording my songs has been very beneficial. Making my videos. It's everything I always wanted to do with my life. You know? Very helpful. If you're passionate about any kind of form of art, please start taking the steps to get yourself into a safe home, to getting your needs met, making sure you have plenty of food and your health care is taken care of, and then seek out means to be able to get the equipment, whatever that is, even the bare minimum, to be able to start channeling your energy and your thoughts into your art. If it's writings, if it's painting, drawing, you know, a book, poetry, songs, if you want to learn an instrument. These are things that are very therapeutic. If it's exercising, if it's going bike riding, or you want to do bike marathons or something, boating, whatever it is, you know, and get yourself some kind of support. I most certainly am not the answer to other people's needs, but, you know, I'm always available for people who would like to talk. I want to be here to support other girls, especially transsexual females that are going through challenging times and need words of hope, of love, channeled into their life. Okay? Know that I've been through more than enough, that I understand to be careful about what I judge. Just be nice to me, and then I'll do my best to be nice to you. Let's see. So, let's see. Characteristics of person. We're going to go into the fitness center, which is what I'm getting ready to. I mentioned about I'm going to be taking you to a fitness center that hurt me greatly while I was living at this house, and I'm going to take you to another fitness center that kind of reversed that process. I'm looking forward to that. Battery's kind of getting low, so we're going to wrap this up. Know that at some point, in dealing with everything, transition, I gave thanks, not feeling. Yes, it's very important to me right now that I was seeking out to have some kind of independence. I realize now that what it would have been best is where I am at kind of today, and I would have came out here voluntarily and been like a best friend to my daddy instead of being a dependent. But can I tell you right now, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, there's nobody else in the world that I would have wanted to go through everything that we went through in our life I wish he was still in my life. I love him. If you see this, and you mention about taking it down, I'm going to disappoint you with that. It's not going down. This is what I want to do with my life. And I do the best I can to leave the details out about other people, like their actual full names, social security numbers, you know, their personal identification, period. But people that were a part of my life, as I talk about things, I never want to hurt anybody, but I at times you get sick of people who just want to keep trying to shut you down. You know, take down the video, take down the photos. You know what? Grow up. Most people don't look into things like we like to think that people look into them. Most people skim by, they look at pictures, they see videos, and that's where it stays. It's the thoughts that we meditate on as to whether it's perceived as good or bad, and the one problem that I had with my daddy is this. He was a military personality, and the truth of the matter is, he liked to bulldog me, dominate, and take control over people's lives. And the truth of the matter is, at a time when you're dependent on somebody, you let them have more pull than they're worthy of having. And it was very challenging for me not to be able to defend myself without the threat of I'm going to be homeless if I speak up in my favor. I never want to end up in that situation again, and I would encourage you that if you're in that situation, know that there are other alternatives. You should have all say in the choices you make, and not one person on this earth, no matter who it is, even the President of the United States, should be able to look at you and tell you this is how you got to live your life or else you got to move. Okay? We all got to live in accordance with the laws of the land that have been made. Not all of them are beneficial to human life. A lot of laws smother human life. God's laws are what? We are of equality, and we're also independent. And when we become ourselves, our true selves, there is true unity in that. And I'll explain on what I mean by that at the end. How can you be independent yet be in unification? It's very easy once you come into the acknowledgement that we have our own personal identity that the world is actually dependent on shining through. We are unified, but we also have to be true to our own hearts first. And a lot of people overstep their bounds. In this relationship, this gentleman overstepped his bounds many times, and he knew he had power over me. And I knew that. I was letting him have it because I needed a home to live. Now, we're going to get back into that in a little bit, but my battery is going low. I'm going to mention that again, and I want to go to another place. I'm getting ready to go over here to LA Fitness. Let me see. It's in Beavercreek on North Fairfield Road. I don't know what's going to happen when I walk in there, but it's time for me to walk in to the fitness center and ask one last time for an apology. This is 9 years later. I'll explain after I go in what happened at this fitness center. I wrote about it online. I gave a call to or an email to and a call to the main headquarters of LA Fitness, and their exact words were that they do not feel that an apology was in order. Okay, I'll write it out a little bit here. I'll make some notes, and then I'm going to go over here to the LA Fitness where I'm going to ask to speak to the manager. I hope it's a female because females are very compassionate in a lot of situations. Not always, but a majority of times. There's a little bit variance in compassion. I'm going to do my best I can to respect it because I don't want any trouble with anybody. I want an apology. I'm asking them on camera. One time, if they ask me or whatever to take off the camera, I'll turn it off. Unless things get out of control. Then I'll turn it back on. But the truth of the matter is, I hope it can be calm and rational. And then I'll explain to you what happened at LA Fitness. Know this. I fell in love with a gentleman that I call my daddy. In my head, I'm a baby girl. In fact, when I was an escort, I got involved in BDSM. When I got involved in BDSM, I met somebody who had a fetish of me being in a diaper. So I used to wear diapers for fun. Actually, it was quite fun, and I have my happy video. So my childlike behavior started to become, and I'm very grateful, and I hope to hold on to a lot of those values as I become. The thing is I believe in a Christ-like sense that I went all the way back to the beginning mentally of my childhood, and I was born again. When I came out here to Ohio, I really did believe, I was convinced that the person I call my daddy was really a person of God, and that God was bringing us together. Now, I didn't know what was going to happen in our relationship. In my head, I seen the very good, and at the same token, the very good, there would also seem to be complete opposition. Almost evilness. And it was very nerve-wracking for me. Stressful. Know that I have nothing bad to say anymore. I'm just stating facts. I still love that person. In fact, I love him even more because we went through all the things that we did. I am currently understanding I am hurt because there were promises that were made to me in order to influence me to come out here. I went through a lot of hell in this relationship, not just because of me, it was both of us. And at the end of the day, they moved on, they're married, they built a new house, and they plain out told me they don't want me in their life anymore. And a lot of it is because of who they ended up married doesn't want me at all in their life. So I try to respect that, but know this, it hurts, and I'm pretty upset in the fact that I was invited out here, went through a lot of stuff in our relationships that I would consider to be very mentally abusive, and then dumped off as in, you're pretty much on your own, I have a new life now, you got to get out of it. Stay out of it. We'll talk a little bit more about that specifically in time to come. I got to go get a new battery, and then we're ready to head over to LA Fitness. And wish me luck, because I'm hoping not to get into a fight. Okay? Let's see what happens. Yep. Alright, we're back in the car. We're getting ready to go to LA Fitness. Now here's the thing, before we go, I have a couple things circled. That I want to touch base on before we go to have closure with that. And I might talk about a little bit of it sporadically. What this is for me is a cleansing process. I hope that something in what I'm sharing is beneficial to life in general. Not just for me, for other people.